Women start missing you not when you leave, but when you let go. When your silence replaces effort, when peace replaces need, and when growth replaces pain, that's when absence becomes powerful. She'll miss your presence, your energy, your depth, not because you're gone, but because you've evolved. When you finally stop chasing her, something profound happens. The energy shifts. For so long, she was used to your presence, your texts, your calls, your constant concern. You were always there, reaching out, showing care, showing effort. But when that effort stops, it doesn't go unnoticed. It echoes in her mind like a quiet emptiness she can't quite name. She may not admit it, but she feels the difference. The space where your energy used to be. At first, she might interpret your silence as pride or ego. She may even tell herself that you're playing games, that you'll come back, just like before. But as the days stretch into weeks, she starts to realize something deeper. You're not chasing anymore because you've finally understood your worth. And that realization hits her harder than any argument or goodbye ever could. You're no longer driven by the fear of losing her. You're guided by the peace of finding yourself. When you stop chasing her, she starts to feel what you once felt: the uncertainty, the longing, the desire for attention. She begins to notice your absence in the smallest moments. The songs you both used to listen to feel different now. The silence at night grows heavier. Even the comfort she once felt from your reassurance starts to fade, and suddenly she's left wondering if you still think of her, if you still care, or if you've finally moved on. You see, chasing someone creates imbalance. It gives them power over your emotions, and in return, it takes away your peace. But when you stop, you take that power back, not out of revenge or resentment, but out of self-respect. You stop needing validation from someone who couldn't appreciate your effort. And that's where the real shift happens. She starts to see the version of you she took for granted, the man who once gave his time, attention, and heart freely. Now, your silence speaks volumes where words once failed. It's not that she suddenly falls in love again. It's that she starts to realize what she lost. The comfort of being chosen, the warmth of being cared for, the feeling of being wanted, all of that disappears when you stop chasing. And in that stillness, she begins to understand that your effort wasn't desperation, it was love. It was presence. It was energy she may never find again. When you stop chasing, you no longer move out of fear of losing her. You move out of confidence in yourself. You stop begging for attention and start commanding respect. You stop seeking love and start becoming love. That's when she begins to miss you, not because you're gone, but because your absence now reflects her own emptiness. She realizes that your presence was a privilege, not a guarantee. And that realization, quiet and painful, becomes the moment she finally feels the weight of losing you. When you focus on yourself again, the entire energy between you and her begins to shift. For the longest time, your thoughts were wrapped around her. What she's doing, how she feels, whether she still cares. You built your emotions around her responses, your mood around her attention. But the moment you decide to pull that energy back and invest it in yourself, something powerful begins to happen. You start to rediscover the version of you that existed before her, confident, calm, purposeful, and alive. When she notices that shift, it confuses her. She senses that something is different. You no longer react the same way. Your messages are fewer, your tone is lighter, and your focus is elsewhere. You're no longer orbiting around her world. You've started building your own again. At first, she might think you're pretending, that it's temporary, that you'll come back to seeking her attention, as always. But then she realizes it's real. You're actually choosing yourself. And that's when her emotions begin to stir. There's something magnetic about a person who finds peace in their own company. When you redirect your time toward your goals, your passions, and your growth, you naturally become more attractive. You're no longer reaching out for validation because you've started to validate yourself. You become centered, grounded, focused, and that kind of energy is impossible to ignore. She starts to see what she couldn't before, the strength of your independence. The more you rise within your own purpose, the more she starts to feel your absence. Not because you're gone, but because your energy no longer revolves around her. You start to glow differently. Your conversations shift from seeking connection to sharing inspiration. Your time becomes valuable. You stop over-explaining yourself, stop justifying your worth, stop trying to prove that you care. You simply exist in your own power. And in that space of quiet confidence, she begins to miss the old you, the one who made her feel like the center of the universe. But now she also begins to admire the new you, the one who no longer needs her approval to feel whole. It's often when you pull back and start living for yourself that people realize your true value. They start to see that your attention was never ordinary. It was rare, consistent, and meaningful. But you can't keep giving it to someone who doesn't recognize its worth. So instead, you give it to your dreams, your peace, your growth. And as you rise, you naturally leave behind the version of yourself that waited, worried, and wondered. When you focus on yourself again, you don't lose her. You lose the parts of yourself that depended on her. You stop needing closure, stop seeking explanation. You find fulfillment within, and that becomes your power. That's when she starts missing you the most, because your energy no longer chases her. It evolves beyond her. When your absence first brings her peace, she convinces herself that this is what she needed all along. The space, the silence, the emotional distance, it all feels like relief at first. She tells herself that maybe things had become too heavy, too intense, too complicated. She might even feel a sense of freedom, a quiet satisfaction in having her world back under her control. But that calm doesn't last forever, because what she soon begins to realize is that your presence, the very one she thought was overwhelming, was also the one that gave her life depth and warmth. At first, she fills the space you left with distractions, friends, social media, work, or even new faces. She laughs louder, stays busier, and convinces herself that she's moved on. But beneath that surface, something feels off. There's a quiet emptiness creeping in, one she can't name. It's not about loneliness. It's about missing a certain kind of energy, the kind that made her feel safe, seen, and cared for. You weren't just part of her days, you were part of her emotional rhythm. And when that rhythm breaks, silence becomes deafening. That's when peace turns into emptiness. What once felt like freedom now feels like absence. The late night calls, the random check-ins, the comfort of knowing someone truly cared, all of that is gone. And suddenly she starts realizing that peace without connection is just isolation dressed beautifully. The very silence she craved now begins to suffocate her. She starts missing your presence not because she's lonely, but because your energy made her feel alive. In that emptiness, she begins to reflect. She replays moments she once brushed aside, your kindness, your patience, your understanding. She remembers how you made her feel when she doubted herself, how your words grounded her when she was lost. And now, without that emotional safety, she begins to feel the weight of what she once had. The peace she thought she wanted now feels incomplete because it came at the cost of losing something real. This is when she starts to see you differently, not as the man who demanded too much, but as the one who gave too much without asking for anything back. She starts realizing that your love wasn't heavy, it was steady. Your attention wasn't overwhelming, it was consistent. Your care wasn't controlling. It was rare, and that realization hits her quietly, often when she least expects it. When your absence brings her peace, she feels relief, but when it turns to emptiness, she feels regret. That's the silent moment when she understands that your presence wasn't the problem, it was the gift. And as much as she may try to fill that void again, deep down she knows that what she lost wasn't just a person, but the energy that made her feel truly understood. When she sees you no longer affected, something inside her shifts. It's subtle at first. Maybe she notices that your tone has changed, that your responses are calm instead of reactive, or that you no longer seem to carry the same emotional weight in your words. You're not cold or distant, you're just centered. And that difference speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. She begins to realize that the emotional control she once took for granted has now become your greatest power. There was a time when she could read your emotions like an open book. Every message from her, every silence, every inconsistency, it all stirred something in you. You would respond, react, reach out. You cared deeply and she knew it. That energy gave her a sense of security, even power. But when she sees that her words no longer cut the same way, when her silence no longer makes you chase, and when her distance no longer triggers your anxiety, that's when the realization begins to dawn. She doesn't have the same hold over you anymore. At first, she might try to test it. Maybe she brings up the past or says something to provoke a reaction. But when you respond with calm indifference, when you no longer feel the need to explain or prove your worth, she feels a new kind of discomfort, not because you're ignoring her, but because you've outgrown the emotional cycle that once connected you. It's not that you stopped caring altogether, it's that you've learned to care in silence without losing yourself in the process. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop allowing someone else to control your emotions. You stop needing their approval to feel worthy. You stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be healed. You simply accept things as they are. And that acceptance radiates through your presence, through the way you speak, move, and respond. It's confidence without arrogance, strength without hostility. And that balance is something she wasn't prepared for. The irony is that the more unaffected you become, the more she starts to feel the emotions you once carried. She starts wondering if you've really moved on, if you've stopped caring, if someone else now holds your attention. She replays old conversations in her mind, trying to understand where the shift happened. The calm she once wished for from you now makes her uneasy because it reminds her that she no longer has the same place in your heart. When she sees you no longer affected, she sees growth, and that growth forces her to confront her own immaturity. You're not angry, you're not resentful, you're just free. And that freedom, more than anything, makes her miss the version of you who once gave her so much power. Because now, without your reactions, she's left alone with the echo of her own silence, realizing that your peace was never indifference, it was evolution. When you become a mystery again, her curiosity begins to stir in ways she didn't expect. For so long, she knew everything about you, your habits, your moods, your routine, your feelings toward her. You were transparent, maybe even predictable. She knew you would text back, she knew you would care, and she knew you would always be available. But when that changes, when you stop revealing everything, when your silence replaces explanations, and when your energy becomes calm and detached, you suddenly become a puzzle she can't solve anymore. At first, she doesn't notice. She might assume you're just busy or distracted. But as time passes, she starts to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. She begins to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and what's occupying your mind now that she isn't. The same mind she once had full access to now feels locked, guarded, and distant. And that unknown draws her in because mystery is magnetic. You see, when you were always available, she never had to question your feelings. She knew your emotions before you even spoke them. But when you become a mystery again, when you stop sharing your every thought, you create space. And in that space, desire grows. She begins to realize how much she relied on your openness, how much comfort she found in always knowing where she stood with you. Now that certainty is gone, and in its place is curiosity, the seed of attraction reborn. The less you say, the more she thinks. The less you show, the more she imagines. That's the beauty of mystery. It allows her mind to fill in the blanks, often with idealized memories and emotions. She starts romanticizing your silence, reinterpreting your absence as strength, and seeing your distance as confidence. And the very things she once found ordinary about you suddenly feel rare. Becoming a mystery again doesn't mean playing games or pretending not to care. It means you've reclaimed your emotional privacy. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to be understood. You don't seek reassurance. You create it within. You start living a life so full, so purpose-driven, that your energy naturally shifts from chasing validation to radiating self-worth. That's when she begins to notice the change. You're not trying to be noticed, yet she can't stop noticing you. It's a paradox. The moment you stop trying to be seen is the moment you become unforgettable. Your silence begins to speak louder than your words ever did. Your absence becomes presence, and your mystery reminds her of something she forgot, that your world doesn't revolve around her anymore. That realization unsettles her because she begins to feel the loss of something she once had total access to. When you become a mystery again, you don't just make her miss you, you make her remember why she was drawn to you in the first place. When she sees you are truly happy without her, it hits differently. Not the forced kind of happiness you posted online to prove a point, not the surface level distraction of pretending to move on, but the quiet, genuine kind, the peace that doesn't need to be announced. She notices it in your energy, in your calmness, in the way you carry yourself. You're no longer searching for closure, no longer stuck in the loop of what went wrong. You've simply accepted it, learned from it, and built a better version of yourself from the pieces she left behind. At first, she may feel indifferent. She might tell herself she's glad you've moved on, that it's what she wanted all along. But the truth starts to sink in when she realizes that your happiness no longer has anything to do with her. You used to need her approval, her attention, her validation, but now you glow without it. You're laughing again, pursuing goals, finding meaning in your days. And for the first time, she sees that your joy is independent of her presence. That's when the ache begins. There's a power in being genuinely content after someone expected your world to fall apart. When she sees that you didn't collapse, that you didn't become bitter or broken, but instead evolved into someone stronger, it changes how she sees you. She starts to remember the times when you were giving your best and she didn't notice. She remembers your patience, your efforts, your love, all the things she once overlooked. But now she's watching from a distance, realizing she no longer has access to the version of you who gave her everything freely. True happiness is silent revenge. It's not loud, not performative. It's simply the peace that comes from no longer needing what once hurt you. You stopped chasing closure because you realized healing doesn't come from someone else's apology. It comes from self-acceptance. You started focusing on your dreams, your body, your purpose, your passion. You started surrounding yourself with people and energy that help you grow. And the more you rise, the clearer it becomes that she was just one chapter, not the whole story. The irony is that this version of you, the confident, grounded, fulfilled one, is often the version she wished she had when things were falling apart. But she doesn't realize that she was part of what pushed you to become him. When she sees you smiling, genuinely living, and no longer seeking her attention, she feels that sting of regret. not because she lost you, but because she lost her influence over you. When she sees you are truly happy without her, it reminds her that love is not control, it's freedom. And by freeing yourself, you've done what she couldn't. You've found peace. And that peace, that glow, that wholeness becomes the very thing she'll miss long after the memories fade. When she realizes no one understands her like you did, it doesn't happen all at once. It comes slowly, often when she least expects it, in conversations with new people, in quiet moments of reflection, or when she tries to explain her feelings and no one seems to really get it. She starts to notice that others listen, but they don't truly hear her. They respond, but they don't connect. And in that gap between being heard and being understood, she begins to feel something she hasn't in a while. The loss of your find someone new. It's that she can't recreate what you gave her. Understanding someone deeply isn't something that happens overnight. It's built through patience, empathy, and presence. And you gave all of that freely. She starts to realize that what she once saw as ordinary was actually extraordinary. The way you listened without interrupting, the way you understood her moods without her having to explain, the way your silence was comforting instead of distant. All of it becomes clearer in hindsight. Eventually, she'll catch herself comparing others to you, not intentionally, but subconsciously. The way someone reacts when she's upset, the way they overlook the details you used to remember, the way they fail to see the emotions behind her words. And in those moments, she understands that being understood was never about compatibility. It was about connection. You offered her that connection, and she let it slip away, thinking she could find it again. When she realizes no one understands her like you did, it humbles her. It reminds her that genuine connection can't be replaced, only remembered. She'll miss your patience, your depth, your emotional intelligence, not because you were perfect, but because you saw her clearly when no one else could. And that kind of understanding leaves an imprint that time can't erase. When you finally let go emotionally, something deep within you shifts, quietly but powerfully. It's not the loud kind of letting go that comes with anger or frustration. It's the calm acceptance that arrives after you've felt everything there was to feel. You stop analyzing the past, stop waiting for closure, stop hoping for change. The pain doesn't vanish overnight, but it loses its grip on your heart. You begin to breathe again, not because the memories have disappeared, but because they no longer control you. For a long time, you held on to the idea of what could have been, to the hope that she might see your worth, to the comfort of what once was. But emotional attachment is heavy, and carrying it keeps you stuck in the same place. The day you decide to release that weight, your world begins to expand again. You start noticing things you once ignored, the calm of solitude, the satisfaction of progress, the quiet joy of simply existing without emotional chaos. That's when healing truly begins. When she senses that shift, it unsettles her. She can feel that something about your energy has changed. You no longer reach out. You no longer react. And most importantly, you no longer carry that invisible thread that tied your emotions to hers. She might test you with silence, with curiosity, with subtle attempts to pull you back, but nothing works. You're no longer operating from a place of need. You've detached, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understand that holding on doesn't bring anyone closer. It only delays your peace. Letting go emotionally doesn't mean you forget her. It means you stop trying to rewrite the story. You stop giving your mind permission to live in memories that no longer serve you. You forgive, not for her, but for yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval. It means freedom. You no longer wake up thinking about what went wrong or go to sleep imagining how things could have been different. Your focus shifts from what you lost to what you're becoming. The beautiful part of emotional detachment is the clarity it brings. You start to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. You realize that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means walking away with grace. The moment you emotionally let go, you stop fighting the universe. You surrender to the truth that what's meant for you will never require you to beg, chase, or lose yourself to keep it. And it's in that surrender that real strength is born. Because when you finally let go emotionally, you don't just free yourself from her, you free yourself from the version of you that needed her to feel complete. That's when peace replaces pain, acceptance replaces confusion, and your heart, once heavy, finally feels light again. In the end, a woman doesn't start missing you because of what you say or do. She starts missing you when your energy changes, when you stop chasing, when you focus on yourself, when your silence becomes peace instead of punishment. She begins to feel the weight of your absence when your presence no longer seeks her validation. The moment you let go, rebuild, and rediscover your strength, you transform from someone who needed her to someone she can never forget. She misses the version of you who understood her, who gave selflessly, who showed love without condition. But she also realizes that man evolved into someone stronger, calmer, and wiser. Your growth becomes her reminder of what she lost, and your peace becomes the mirror that reflects her regrets. True power lies not in making someone miss you, but in becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to be missed. Because when you master yourself, when your happiness no longer depends on anyone else, you don't chase love, you attract it. And that's when the world, and sometimes even she, finally sees your worth.